Health by Design, the podcast where we explore your brilliant biology, current research, and successful traditions to give you the health of your life. Bacteria everywhere. Let it live? Should we sanitize it? Just kill it off? Can we sanitize our way to health? Post-health, environment, and health hacks are the three pillars, and today's episode explains a tiny yet very big part of the first. Probiotics, beneficial bacteria, microflora, microbiome, and nanoorganisms may be talking about the same thing. Let's consider one more example. In a compost heap, there's bacteria. Just like a healthy intestinal tract, the percentage of good guys to bad guys is similar. I use the term good guys and bad guys loosely. Even so-called pathogenic bacteria serves a purpose. In a compost heap, we know that the most pathogenic bacteria can be naturally overcome and brought into balance by the good guys. Here is a story from another amazing book, one of my top gardening books, and you'll see how it relates. In J.I. Rodale's words from 1945, not mine, he says on plant disease and insect pests, in order to cope with this problem, it would help a great deal if the farmer and gardener tried to study cause and effect. First of all, what causes plant diseases? Most of them are caused by bacteria, fungi, and other microscopic disease-producing organisms. Do these organisms directly bring about the disease? The answer probably is yes, but then the question arises, why do these organisms attack certain plants and leave others alone? Let's consider a human being. The mouth of an average person, even after he has cleaned his teeth, teems with bacteria. When bodily resistance gets low, some of these germs or viruses may bring on a cold. But some people can harbor quantities of identical disease-causing organisms without ever contracting a cold. It is said that practically everybody carries tuberculosis germs in the body, but comparatively few succumb to the disease. The plant world presents a parallel solution. In the human body, resistance is chiefly built up by eating a varied diet of good food. Even though our food today is more or less unsatisfactory, a person receiving a rounded diet is healthier and better able to resist diseases than one who lives on an unbalanced diet, other things being equal. The food of the plant comes from the soil where it is pre-digested before ingestion takes place through the roots. I'm going to stop the quote right here just because it occurred to me. We are able to resist disease. I'll never forget when my 2-year-old nephew was at LAX and saw a piece of candy on the floor, and before we could get it from him, he had bent down, picked it up, and stuffed it in his mouth. I remember praying for him over and over, "Oh Lord, let him live." And he did answer that prayer, but I don't know, maybe the 5-second rule is for a reason. Maybe that helps give us more bacteria that our body learns to fight. Just an idea. Now I'll continue with the quote. We have shown that earthworms, bacteria, fungi, and many other microorganisms play a prominent part in breaking down organic matter and preparing it for the roots. It has been demonstrated beyond question that the use of strong chemicals inhibits the action of these microbes, and that where practically no organic matter is used and dependence is entirely on chemical fertilizers, the plant is apt not to be healthy, unquote. Then Rodale goes on to quote Sir Albert Howard, the great researcher on the importance of healthy soil for plant, animal, and human health, from organic gardening in 1942. In 1934, I purchased a house, the garden of which was completely worn out through no fault of the previous owner. It was a veritable pathological museum. The fruit trees in particular were smothered with every kind of blight. Steps were taken to convert the vegetable waste into humus with the help of stable litter. Even after 1 year, the pests began to retreat. In 3 years, all had disappeared, the woolly aphis on one apple tree being the last to leave. During this period, no insecticides or fungicides were used, and no disease material was ever destroyed. It was all converted into humus, unquote. And I think of our apple trees. We've got several apple trees in our backyard, and we compost regularly, but we put it under our trees maybe every couple of years. But it is interesting that after all these years, and all those apples that have fallen on the ground, we don't have a big problem with, what are those bugs that get into the apples, even though our apples are organic, I can't remember finding one bug in an apple. And I have to believe that the bugs aren't trying to bring the apple tree down to the ground. I think it does that to things that are trees and plants that are unhealthy to nourish the soil so that the compost can feed the next generation. But I want you to think of insecticides or fungicides as the antibiotics that they are. Some of them, like glyphosate or Roundup, is patented as an antibiotic, and the FDA has said it's a carcinogen. And they've sold a pound of carcinogen in 2019 for every man, woman, and child in this country. And yet, when the FDA required that they put that on the label, they went back to court and fought them so they didn't have to put it on the label. Anyway, even without antibiotics, this diseased farm was able to overcome the many pathogens by giving it the right soil nourishment. J.I. Rodale gives many examples by others of the good guys overcoming the bad guys. So what if, inside the human body, we could overcome disease by having the right gut flora? We believe that this is what is meant by Beauchamp's term, health of the host. And this is foundational to staying healthy and quite possibly more important than what one is exposed to. Beauchamp called the quote, microbial or germ theory of disease, the greatest scientific silliness of the age, unquote. Wait, what? Everything we've heard in the newspaper and seen on the news lately has made us think that germs cause disease. How can a respected scientist and author say it is silly to think that? Yet, if we look at the world around us with honest, open eyes, we will begin to question the idea that every dis-ease is caused by germs, without considering the health of the host that is exposed. This is a concept I teach more simply in my high school health class, and if you know that you want your children to understand this, I'll include a link for my health class so you can help them to strengthen their immune system. Oh, you know what? I'll also post a link from my site where you can share with your young people, as it gives an example from our mini farm of how host health works in chickens. So consider this. Have you fermented veggies or made sauerkraut? Just like sourdough, many use a starter to start the fermentation process. One of the most surprising things that has made me think deeply on this is that there is bacteria naturally on a cabbage leaf that can be a sauerkraut starter. Let's say you grow a cabbage in your garden in compost. You use no chemicals to grow it. This vegetable grown naturally in your garden has so much beneficial bacteria on it that you can make sauerkraut with it without a starter. And I'll leave a link in the show notes to that too. Every traditional society seems to have a type of food that provides probiotics or beneficial bacteria. Germans had sauerkraut. Koreans have kimchi. Japanese pufferfish and fermented shark. Fermented soy is natto. Oh, that's interesting. And think about the pufferfish, right? The pufferfish is toxic or poisonous if you eat it by itself. But the way the Japanese eat it is fermented, and then it loses that toxicity. Which reminds me of soy. Fermented soy is natto. That's probably the only way I'll touch soy now. But you get the idea. Every society has those kind of probiotics. I've also seen a picture that's amazing that shows the importance of the variety of bacteria on the skin. They've looked at healthy skin under a microscope and found a tremendous variety of bacteria. And then they looked at a diseased leg under a microscope and found it had very few strains of bacteria. Wow, which leads me to consider, can we sanitize our way to health? What about our inclination to want to destroy bad bacteria? We are encouraged to kill bacteria everywhere. Hand sanitizer is offered at every store. They're considered negligent if they don't. But do we even know what happens to our body when we do that? Do we really know what killing bacteria does? Do we really know what killing bacteria with an antibacterial ingredient does to our beneficial bacteria? Hand sanitizer is a form of antibiotics. Research shows it destroys much of your protective beneficial flora and can compromise your immune system. Dr. Perlmutter has seen people with Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis that always seem to have histories of repeated antibiotics. He's even found some cases reversed by putting the bacteria back in. Béchamp with his health of the host theory and microzymas, Nasens with the idea of somatids, Rife with his healing microscopes, Owens with her research on nanobes, the cabbage in your garden, in your compost, and on a healthy leg are rich in the variety of bacteria and show you that these little guys are all around us. So here's just one more thing to consider. In Latin, anti means against. Bio means life. Antibiotics are literally against life. Beneficial bacteria may be a critical component to host health and why a virus doesn't make everyone sick. And I leave you with this. Consider, if we have more bacteria than cells, would killing our bacteria kill us?